have been a fan of superheroes for quite a few years at this point, but for some reason I never got into DC. It was probably because the DCEU was at its height and those movies, to put it nicely, suck, for the most part. But in January of this year I started Rain Family Adventures, an official Batman webcomic based on the Bat family, and I fell in love! And ever since then, I've been trying to educate myself on the DC universe, or universes, and now that I finally have my hands on the DC animated stuff, I don't really know why Green Lantern the Animated Series was the first thing I watched. Like, literally no one talks about this show. I honestly forget how I came to know of his existence. Green Lantern was one of the main Justice League members I knew nothing about, and I guess I was curious. I figured this show would be an easy way to learn at least the basics of how the Green Lantern Corps works. I wasn't expecting anything big for this show. In fact, I thought this would be an ordinary kids show, nothing too impressive, just a way to introduce kids to the characters so they could go on to look for the real Green Lantern content. And boy was I wrong! This show goes so unnecessarily hard. By the end of it, I was legit screaming and kicking my feet. I took notes on each episode as I was watching, and by the end of the season, I was writing exclusively in all caps. And the show only has one season. It's 26 episodes, so it's a fairly good-length season, but my goodness do I want more! In this video, I'm going episode by episode and talking about what happens, what it means, and my reaction, just basically breaking down the lore. I highly suggest you watch this show for yourself first, though, because nothing is going to beat seeing this all in real time. Alright, with that out of the way, let's begin. Now, like I said, this show is my first and only exposure to the Green Lantern character and the world, so I don't know how much of this is original to the show or what is derived from the comics. For those of you who are well educated in the Green Lantern mythos, a lot of what was new to me may be old news to you. Speaking of, here's how the Green Lantern Corps works within the canon of the show. The Green Lanterns are basically space cops, and each Green Lantern is given a sector of space to patrol, and a lot of the times the sector corresponds with the home planet of the Green Lantern. The home base for the Corps is a planet called Oa, and the Corps is overseen by these little blue guys called Guardians, who may or may not be morally corrupt. Each Green Lantern gets this nifty green ring that allows them to create anything they can conceive. It sounds overpowered, but when you see it in action, it's really not. And in order to charge the ring, they need to plug it into their Green Lanterns and say the magic words. The first episode really sets the tone for the show, seeing as the first thing that happens is a Green Lantern being brutally murdered. That was my first signal that this was not an ordinary kid's show. When a Green Lantern dies, their ring flies off and either floats back to Oa or goes to the next viable candidate. Then we meet Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern of Earth, trying to juggle an ordinary life and a superhero persona. He's got a maybe girlfriend named Carol, and then he gets called off to Green Lantern duty on Oa. Also, I did not know that he was chill. He's a really fun guy. I don't know what I expected, maybe someone more serious, but I like a jokester. I'll take a jokester. On Oa, Hal and his friend Kilowog take the scenic route at the urging of the only chill guardian, Ganthet. Sayid is also chill, but she's not important. Anyway, Hal and Kilowog find an extremely sophisticated ship with an extremely sophisticated AI system that they named Aya. Hal is not very good at naming things. After the not chill guardian named Appa. Appa? Like the Skybite tells them no! Don't answer that distress signal. And they're like, no, we're gonna answer the distress signal. And so they steal the ship and go on their way. And Ganthet is like, oh, I did not mean for that to happen. Wink. Turns out the distress signal was from a Green Lantern on the brink of death, and he's being attacked by two Red Lanterns named Zelias, Zox, and Razer. Now what you've got to understand is that all the different types of lanterns run on different types of emotion, so where Green Lanterns run on willpower, Red Lanterns run on hate. So the two of them try to kill the dying Green Lantern, and Hal and Kilowog stop them so they don't. Hurrah! Things go crazy! The dying Green Lantern from last episode wants to go to his home planet to get medical attention, so they do that. We meet his wife and kid, and we should have known something was about to happen. Zox, Razer, and their boss Atrocitus woke up and decided, hey, I want to commit mass genocide today! So they plan to bomb in the planet to destroy it. Razer is designated the responsibility of pressing the button. He hesitates, but he does it. And the planet explodes. And the Green Lantern guy we saved in the last episode sacrificed himself to save his family! This is episode 2! Razer feels super guilty about it, and Hal goes ham on him, and is punching, and Razer is straight up begging for death. Bro is suicidal. Hal captures Razer and brings him to the ship. But alas, fear not! Apparently the planet was only inhabited by like 50 people, and Kilowog saved them, so it's all okay. I mean, the other guy still died, and now his wife's a widow, and his daughter is sad and is going to grow up without a father, and she asks if it's okay to miss him. This is episode 2. Episode 2! I cannot stress that enough. This is episode 2! Razer is at a prison aboard the ship, which is called the Interceptor, by the way, and is torturing himself by watching a video of the planet he blew up over and over again. He is completely unresponsive to anything anyone says to him. He doesn't know that nearly everyone survived, and he's racked with guilt. Hal and Kilowog bring Razer to a galactic prison, but what Hal and Kilowog didn't know was that this prison uses torture methods. They have these headpieces that they put on their prisoners that make them relive their worst days of their lives over and over, and through this, we see a little Razer backstory. Before Razer was a Red Lantern, his planet was being attacked by something. He has a girlfriend named Alana who doesn't want him to leave, but he wants to join the military in order to better protect her. One military later, and Razer returns to her to find her dead! His rage consumes him, and he becomes a Red Lantern. Meanwhile, Hal and Kilowog try and fail to rescue Razer from the prison they put him in, so now it's up to Aya, the AI nav system. She gets in the walls and talks to Razer. She sees his backstory and now shares his pain, and she tells him that he didn't kill anyone on the planet explosion. He says that he still pressed the button knowing that it would kill all those people, so in his mind he's still a murderer. Which is some integrity! What a guy! Razer gets rescued, and now it's episode 4. Razer has nowhere to go now because Atrocitus thinks Razer betrayed them, so he's just kinda hanging out with the Green Lanterns. But they do not get along. Razer still hates Green Lanterns, is racked with self-guilt, and he's not really the easiest to get along with, being fueled by rage and all, but they're all kinda stuck together, so there's not much to do about it. Some minor level bonding occurs during a death-defying mission, but the important takeaway from this episode is that Aya wants to be human, so she builds herself a body, and it's Bruce Tim, may we have a word? This show suffers from what I like to call the female armor problem. This is not the last time it occurs, and honestly, compared to some stuff later, Aya's design isn't too bad. You get used to it, and she's too sweet, you can't hate her. And it is at this point that Green Lantern the Animated Series would like to remind you that it does not want to be a kid's show. Hal is searching the cosmos for people outside the Green Lantern Corps that would like to help them defend against the incoming Red Lantern attacks. They go to a planet ruled by Queen Iolande, but something in the law keeps her from ruling fully unless she's married. Kothak, the captain of the guard who happens to be a big bully, wants to marry Iolande for power. Literally no one wants that, so the Green Lantern of the planet, Duloc, steps in to compete for the Queen's hand. Later, he mysteriously disappears, and Razer and Aya discover his dead body! Shown on screen, by the way! So Hal steps in for Duloc and fights Kothak for the Queen's hand. He decides that when he's king, he'll change the rules so Iolande can rule by herself, so we love that. Then Kilowog gets poisoned and dies. Hello? And his ring flies off his finger, so bro is dead! But it's okay, he's actually not. It was just an illusion the whole time. It was done to rat out Iolande's brother as the murderer of Duloc because he wants to rule the planet in place of his sister. So, okay, death fake-outs are nothing new. They happen all the time and are seldom believable. But I'm not gonna lie, they got me on this one. The show has already done so many out-of-pocket things that I would not put it past them. They got me fooled, bro! Iolande receives Duloc's old ring and then she smooches Hal? Hello, what about Carol? Iolande, I love you, queen, but actually, it's not her fault. She didn't know. Hal is just a player. The gang gets stranded on a planet. Things happen, but the most important thing is we meet a guy called Saint Walker, and bro is chill. He could easily be a sensei-type character. He encounters Razer and has a little heart-to-heart with him, but Razer is having none of it. His character arc is not nearly at that stage yet, but at least Walker tried. Anyway, there's a new Green Lantern. It's the whole dang planet! Razer wants closure, so he sneaks into the Red Lantern Corps with the intent to assassinate Atrocitus. Razer doesn't care if he dies. He hasn't since he blew up that planet. But Atrocitus captures Razer and decides he wants to execute him for treason. And Razer is actually on the chopping block, and Zox has the axe in his hand before Hal and Kilowog save him. This show? What the heck? Also, Atrocitus reveals that it was him who destroyed Razer's planet and killed Alana, so Razer goes a little crazy! Hal and Kilowog go hunting for food on a planet, and it is in this episode we learn more about Kilowog's backstory. He has mentioned before that his whole planet had exploded, but in this episode we learn that he had a wife and kids and actually witnessed it blow up. Meanwhile, Razer is back on the Interceptor. In the previous episode, while in the Red Lantern facility, he had swiped the Red Lantern, like the actual lantern, so he can charge his ring now. Now, when the Green Lanterns do it, they have to recite a nifty little rhyme that talks about doing the right thing and whatnot, but the Red Lantern oath is much more, violent? Aya walks in on Razer reciting the words to charge his ring and gets really touchy about it. He snaps at her, but he's not really mad at her, he's upset that he has to say this awful rhyme, shouting, "It's vile!" And he has to say them over and over and over to retain his power, and it's its own kind of torture. Aya tries to help him by changing the words to something better, but keeping them as something that might still work to charge the ring. It doesn't work, but Razer lies and says that it does. And here you'll notice that Aya and Razer are bonding a lot. What could that mean? This is a really weird episode, like the kind you get secondhand embarrassment from. It is in this episode we meet the Pink Lanterns, but they don't call themselves that, because that would be too simple. They call themselves Star Sapphires, which... sapphires are blue. And it is now I would like to direct your attention to the screen for another episode of The Female Armor Problem! What are these outfits? This barely qualifies as an outfit, much less armor you would fight in. Where are your clothes? I don't care if it's comic accurate, put on a shirt! And what do you know? These Pink Lanterns are on love, except they don't actually really know what love is, so it's pretty much self-righteousness and we hate men. A girl named Giata keeps hitting on Hal, and why are you so touchy-feely about it? And I don't even want to talk about what's happening with Kilowog, I don't have the energy. Razer is the only one here who's actually sane. The Pink Lanterns are like, "Hey Hal, we sense you were in love with someone," and they snap their fingers and just bring Carol over. Carol gets a terrible new Pink Lantern outfit. I don't want to talk about it. Look, what is that? And teaches Giata the true meaning of love. The leader of the Pink Lanterns is like, "Girl, you're wrong." And then this metal line happens. "You have much to learn." No, I have much to teach. Also, the leader confirmed that Razer was dead inside. Aya also reveals that she used Alana's likeness out of Razer's head back in episode 3 to base her physical body off of, and Razer is not happy about that. Aya says that it's because that's the most recent woman in her database, and probably the only woman in her database, excluding the Guardians, but who would want to look like that? I mean, look at those hairlines! Oh wait, Aya doesn't even have any hair. Alright, remember a few episodes ago when Iolande's brother tried to take over the throne? Yeah, his name is Ragnar, and he's a Red Lantern now. He actually succeeds in taking over Iolande's throne, and she's in prison now. And, girl, you're a Green Lantern! You can escape that! You don't need Hal to set you free! What are you playing at? Some more Red Lanterns come along and plant the same bombs that killed the planet in episode 2, and I think there's a small flaw in this plan. Ragnar, how are you planning to rule the planet if it's smithereens? Anyway, they get rid of Ragnar and the bombs to save the day. The much more interesting things happen in the B-plot. Ganthet, remember that chill guardian from episode 1 who supported Hal and Kilowog's crime of theft? Yeah, Appa found out about that and wants to exile him. So, can we just talk about a minute? What the heck is this government system? What do you mean the accused can't speak before trial? And we have a whole council. Why is Appa given all the power to decide that Ganthet is exiled? Does Bro not get a lawyer? The right to an attorney? I don't know very much about the law, but I know enough to know that this is crap. Apparently, the Guardians' whole thing is they don't like feeling emotions, so when Appa is sending off Ganthet, he says, "I almost feel the baseline emotion of pity for you." And there's the pity. It is also in this episode we learn some shady things about the Guardians' past. Eons ago, the Guardians had created robots called Manhunters that were sent out to destroy every bad person. Unfortunately, the robots decided that everyone was a bad person and massacred whole planets. Both Atrocitus and Zox are the last of their species because of an attack from these guys. So, yeah, I'd say their hatred of Green Lanterns is pretty much deserved. And that's another reason why Ganthet was exiled, because he wanted the Guardians to own up to it instead of burying the truth. This episode made me ask a lot of questions about how the rings for the lanterns work, because is it anyone who feels an unbridled amount of rage who gets a Red Lantern ring? Why do more DC villains not get them? I mean, Lex Luthor is extremely guided by rage. What's the canon explanation for that? And the same goes for the other way around. Green Lanterns. What's the canon explanation for Superman not being one? Or Nightwing? Or Batman? He's got a lot of willpower. This is all probably explained in the comics. The show just doesn't go into all that because we never venture outside of the Green Lantern lineup. Except for next episode. Hawk people jump scare! We don't see Hawkman or Hawkgirl themselves, but we do see people of the same species. We're back at that old prison to get information from a Hawkeye? Hawkeye? And there was a reason for this, but I don't remember it. I don't even know what it was. But Hal just let them go? Releases them from prison? Hello? They're criminals! Anyway, this Hawkeye called Bith Rock, I can't with him because he hit on Aya so hard. And then he goes on to say, I've had weirder wives, just wait till you hear about my 8th one! Brother, you stay away from her! I wish I had written down exactly what he said about Aya, because it was wild. Anyway, there are these yellow crystals scattered around the prison that render the Green Lantern rings unusable, as a reference to Green Lanterns in the comics being weak to the color yellow for whatever reason. And because Aya is basically made out of Green Lantern energy, she can't walk. So Razer volunteers to take her away, and maybe it's because he cares, or maybe he just wants out of the prison that tortured him, who's to say. Also, at one point he had an arm around Aya's waist, and that was probably to steady her, but the signs are there, and it would be fine if she wasn't a robot! It's a little weird. The important thing is, in this episode, that St. Walker, the chill guy from the Living Planet, is now the first Blue Lantern, whose power ring runs on hope. Kilowog stays behind to fight an entire Red Lantern armada single-handedly, but Mogo, the Living Planet, and St. Walker, newly blue, beat them up and probably commit mass genocide. There's some scaling issues with Mogo. I feel like he should be much bigger, and how is he leaving his orbit and, not throwing the entire universe out of order? How is the entire planet and life on it not frozen? Where's the sun? Your magnetic field, what happened to that? Anyway, Hal needs to teleport to Oa quickly, but he can't because he's too far away. So he visits the Pink Lanterns because if they could bring Carol to him, then they could bring him to Carol. And from Earth, he could fly to Oa. But the trip gives Hal amnesia for 2 whole minutes, but it's fine because he goes off to do the big boss fight with Atrocitus. Atrocitus, now defeated, is now in prison, so Hal goes back to Earth to resume his Green Lantern duties, only to find out he's been replaced by Guy Gardner, who is a jerk and a flirt and has the worst timing and he's awful and it's great. The two of them go on a mission together, where Hal and Guy find a temple with manhunters in it, the robots the Guardians built, and then the manhunters awaken, but they defeat it, but not before the manhunters straight up kill an innocent archaeologist. I also want to acknowledge the fact that the Manhunters look and behave suspiciously like the Sentinels in X-Men. The amount of times I almost wrote Sentinels instead of Manhunters in the script is a little wild. Look at that! It's suspicious! They're the same! That's the same thing! Hal goes to Oa to report on this development and discovers that there are manhunters on almost every planet and something is awakening them and they have to stop it. Unfortunately, the gang is scattered, so he finds Kilowog and a new bird guy named Tamare, who is here for 2 episodes, to check stuff out. They find the planet where someone is recreating the manhunters, and it's a blue and yellow mech suit named the Anti-Monitor, and they do a Hal death fake out. I can't believe Green Lantern died in Green Lantern the Animated Series. Wow, Green Lantern isn't dead! Who would have guessed? Hal is simply in an alternate steampunk dimension. It's dying, so he brings the whole planet over to his dimension, and... Hello? Is that how that works? What about the magnetic field? And the temperature? Did you know that they would be in a Goldilocks spot? You could have killed them! And you know all those astronomers are fuming. Thousands of years of studying the stars just to get new ones. The crew finds Razer and they're hanging out with the Blue Lanterns. Ganthitz is also here, which I found odd because apparently the reason they exiled his character in episode 10 was because the voice actor died. I didn't do enough research, so I don't know if they just had pre-recorded voice lines or they recast him. Anyway, that's not important because Razer is here! And when he saw the Interceptor fly in, he immediately thought of Aya! Later, he goes to talk to Walker and asked if he thought Aya could feel real emotion, because, she's a robot. And Walker was like, that's not the right question. The question is, will you allow yourself to fall in love again? And Razer was like, dude, stop talking, that's not it at all! It is, though. It is totally that. Anyway, the crew finds manhunters on this planet the Blue Lanterns are on, and Aya kidnaps one and tries to rehabilitate it. She talks about how she surpassed her programming and how he could do the same, but he just wasn't sophisticated enough. Later, the Manhunters attack the crew. Specifically, they attack anything with emotion, because that is the root of all evil according to them. They can physically see emotion in people like a heat map. He sees them in Razer, and then Aya forms emotions when she looks at him. Aya is now officially sentient. Is it still weird? Yeah, but they canonically made it not weird, so it gets better. Then a Manhunter shoots Aya, and Razer goes off! It's canon that his red ring doesn't work in the presence of blue rings, but his rage surpassed that barrier and he wipes the floor, and it was epic and I love them now. This is probably my favorite episode in the entire show. This episode was when I started writing my reactions in all caps. A character I actually knew of before watching the show decides to make an appearance, Sinestro, and judging by his name, you may guess that this guy is sinister. And he is, but here we have a situation known as setting up plot points for a future that will never happen because we only have one season. In this episode, Sinestro is a Green Lantern, not yet revealed as a bad guy, although the signs are there. Sinestro has broken a criminal out of prison with the intent of bringing him to Oa for some reason. The criminal's name is Neuroxus, and he's a little blob, but he's a dangerous little blob because he can go into anyone's mind and take over their body. So we get some fun, which of us is the imposter among us situations. There's a Sinestro is actually evil fake out with this plot before the crew knows what's actually happening, and they lock him on their onboard prison cell with Neuroxus. Meanwhile, Neuroxus inhabits Razer and does some weird stuff. At this point, Aya is crushing on Razer, but he doesn't know how to respond because he hasn't quite allowed himself to realize that he likes her. But when Neuroxus takes over Razer's mind, he puts on the moves, and it's so terrible, there's so much secondhand embarrassment. Neuroxus, through Razer, is trying to get Aya to give him a gun, and he does the push against the wall thing and then strokes her cheek. It was like, I would have spent time with you, wink wink, and I'm dying. When Aya gets out of that situation and talks to the crew, she's like, guys, Razer's being really weird. And Hal is like, it's hormones! I actually can't anymore. Sinestro helps devise a way to reveal which of them Neuroxus is inhabiting. They all have rings, and Neuroxus can't activate the rings, and the rings are able to let them breathe when there's no air, so they turn off all the air in the ship. So Razer starts choking for a scene that goes on longer than I would have thought in a kid's show. The show was not a kid's show, and Aya's kind of freaking out like, we need to turn on the air now! But Neuroxus leaves Razer's body just in time, so it's fine. But Neuroxus dies anyway, because while Sinestro was in the cell with him, he did something to the walls to connect it to the rest of the ship, but long story short, Neuroxus suffocated and died. But the best part is when Aya confronts Razer and is like, I should have known you were being possessed. He asks why, and she says, you expressed interest in spending time with me. Ah! He was so flabbergasted! Episode 19 is the turning point of the show. Compared to what comes next, the rest of the show has been tame. From here on out, you are going to ask yourself, is this a kid show? Is this really made for kids? And the answer is no, it was made for me. It starts with Razer going back to his home planet and seeing the destruction and going back to the place where Alana died. He needs to get closure. Aya followed Razer there, and they had a really nice heart-to-heart, and it was really sweet, and they nearly kissed until they were interrupted! He's opening himself up to her, he's healing! Later, the Anti-Monitor comes back with a bunch of manhunters, so the whole crew go out into space to beat them, but there are too many, so they have to retreat. Hal and Kilowog make it back safe, but Razer is stuck between too many and can't escape, so Aya goes out there to save her loser boyfriend, and now she sacrifices herself to save his life, and he's cradling her dying body in his arms, and he says, I love you, and she says she knows now what the meaning of regret is, and she dies in his arms! What? Bro cannot catch a break! He finally opens up his heart to love again, and she just dies immediately? Naturally, Razer is heartbroken. First, his girlfriend dies back on his home planet, which has been destroyed, and he is so grief-driven that a Red Lantern ring chooses him. Then he goes through therapy and finally allows himself to get closure on the whole ordeal and allows himself to start anew with Aya, and then she just dies? Why does the universe hate this guy? What did he do? And when Hal asks what happened and Razer tells him, Hal blames him for Aya's death and yells at him. Brother, I know you're sad, but have some empathy, goodness gracious! In the previous episode, the gang rescued a bald woman guardian, so now she's on the ship. Because the guardians had created the manhunters, and that is what they're being chased by, she goes out to confront them, holds up her hand, and says, stop. And it just works? Where was this when Aya died? And then she dies too. But just kidding, because last minute Aya transferred her consciousness to a manhunter, so she comes back aboard as some scrap baby Ennard looking thing, and Razer is so confused, not just with the whole, Aya is back situation, but also with how he's feeling. His maybe girlfriend just died in his arms, and now she's back like nothing happened, except looks like she's been sitting outside Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. And the conversation they have is so, Razer, I love you, but King, your crown is falling! He tells her he doesn't love her, and that she's just a machine, and it's only because she looked like Alana that he felt something for her. Now, clearly, that's not true, but he's trying to justify an impossible situation to himself and is handling it extremely poorly. But poor Aya! She's so heartbroken and confused, and she goes to Hal to talk it out because she cannot process what happened, and he's like, oh snap, I'm a father now, and I have to talk to my robot daughter about her first breakup, but we're in the middle of a battle, so we can't! So Aya decides to take matters into her own hands. Previously, she had asked Razer for advice about how to deal with pain, and he said to ignore it, so she erases all emotion from her programming. She goes to the giant green lantern, like the actual lantern, powering the ship, and sucks out all the power and puts it into herself. Her loser boyfriend broke up with her, so now she's going sicko mode! She single-handedly defeats all the Manhunters and destroys the Anti-Monitor, but she is going on her villain arc now as an emotionless husk and becomes the Anti-Monitor and becomes the very thing that she sought to destroy. Back in episode 17, Aya had talked to that Manhunter about surpassing his programming to be better, but he couldn't give up getting rid of all emotion, and now that's exactly what Aya is doing. Because Aya sucked all the power out of the ship, it can't move anymore, and Hal, Kilowog, and Razer can't charge their rings. They crash and land on a planet and have to try to get off without their powers. Each of these guys are completely different species from completely different planets, but their rings have a universal translator that allows them to hear their own language when they talk. Now that the rings are at a 0, none of them can understand one another, which leads to some fun shenanigans. There's a moment where they have to pay for a ride, but none of them have any money, so they all empty their pockets and Razer pulls out a comical amount of knives. Is this episode emotional whiplash? Yeah, a little bit, but we do get to see a man get eaten alive. Aya goes to the Star Sapphires for love advice and decides she wants to make love and hate fight each other. And why shouldn't she? As a treat. A representative of love and hate are chosen. Atrocitus, straight from prison, as hate, and Carol from Earth as love because she gave them love advice that one time. It's Carol versus Atrocitus, and Carol uses her ring to call Hal, so he's teleported over and they kick some booty together. But Atrocitus gets him one final laser blast, and Giata, the girl who had hit on Hal previously, but now she's chill, leaps in front of the blast and sacrifices herself, and now we have another on-screen death. Excuse me? Why does main character death keep happening? Razer suggests to the team that they go looking for the orange lanterns, which not much is known about. They successfully find them, but there's only one left, and he is literally just Gollum. The orange lanterns are powered by greed, and Hal is affected by it, but he's okay now. The cool parts happen when Kilowog tries to talk to Razer, and Razer snaps, shouting that he blames himself for what happened with Aya. Kilowog, being the emotionally aware person he is, tells Razer that the Aya they know may not be in there anymore, and they may have to kill her. Also, the stars are disappearing, because Aya is destroying them all. The astronomers are fuming! Remember that bald guardian lady who died a couple episodes ago? Yeah, she didn't die, she's fine. Apparently she was the one who created Aya, and she says that she put a bit of the being that lives inside the Green Lantern inside Aya, which... The what now? So because of that, Aya is technically alive. The I love Razer and Aya, but Aya is a robot conundrum is solved! Anyway, the crew enlists the Bald Guardian's help in stopping Aya, and she constructs a missile made of the yellow crystals that deactivate the Green Lantern powers. Razer is not happy about this because it could kill Aya! Well, they tried the missile and it didn't work, so Hal sets the interceptor at full speed and blasts it into Aya and sends her to the other side of the galaxy. Razer is fuming and punches Hal straight in the jaw, shouting, "You killed her!" A lot happens in episode 25, including cameos from every Green Lantern we've seen so far, and a Jon Stewart name drop. Because Aya is destroying so many star systems, Razer infers that she has been the cause of death for millions, and tells her that the guilt of what she's done will be too much for her, and he knows what it's like because he once believed himself to be the killer of thousands back when he blew up that planet in episode 2. Aya is undeterred and decides to travel back to the beginning of time to remake the universe to be without emotion. AKA, all life will cease to exist. Razer finally admits that there is no hope for her. This is it. The final episode. This show, I don't even know how to describe it. The complex characters, especially Razer's redemption arc, I feel fairly confident in saying that it is on par with Zuko's. They don't rush the pacing, his emotions and the way he processes things feel real, he's flawed, all the things between him and Aya are extremely well paced and believable. Hal and Kilowog are lovable and I'm excited to see them in other projects. Both Razer and Aya were created specifically for this show, which is wonderful, but that also means there's not a lot of content of them anywhere else. Dude, if this show ever gets the X-Men 97 treatment and gets a revival, I will be the happiest person on the planet. But here is the final episode of Green Lantern, the animated series. Aya succeeds in getting to the beginning of time, and I love the imagery here, and that is a hand holding the universe. Hal follows her into the time portal and calls for Kilowog to send Razer, because his red lantern magic is the only thing that could hurt her. When Razer gets there, he solemnly uses his red powers to pull out a sword and tries to stab her in the back, but couldn't because his powers are fueled by hate and he could never hate her, so it didn't work! Hal also figures out that the real Aya has to be in there somewhere because Aya never actually killed anyone. The star systems she had targeted were apparently uninhabited. Hal also tells Aya that she is actually alive, and if she erases all life from ever existing, she will be erasing herself too. Aya thinks this is a necessary sacrifice and then blasts Razer, and that snaps her out of it. He starts crying and she starts crying and Aya is back to normal, woohoo! She closes the time portal and they are in love, Your Honor, and they are happy for all of 2 seconds. See, Aya had been controlling the Manhunters and she had put a piece of herself inside each, meaning that now each of the Manhunters wants to extinguish all life from the universe, and the only way to stop them is to create a virus that affected all the Ayas. All of them. All of them! And Razer, my poor boy, cannot catch a break, and the way he hugs her, I can't, it's so sweet, and she dies in his arms, again! How has this happened again? This poor boy, why can't he be happy? When is it his turn to be happy? Why can't he be happy? When is it his turn? Why is the universe so cruel to him? What did he do to deserve this? Let's just break this down, shall we? First, Razer leaves home only to find that the love of his life has died. His rage at that moment fuels him for the rest of his life, and he becomes a Red Lantern to get revenge. Then, he believes himself to be the murderer of thousands after willingly blowing up a planet. But even after that, is rejected by the Red Lantern, so he must join the enemy out of necessity. Then he finds himself falling in love again, but doesn't realize it, and when he does, she dies in his arms, and he's hurting all over again just to find out that it was a fluke. And he's more confused than ever, and accidentally causes her to go on a villain arc, and he has to be the one to kill her. And all this time, he is racked with guilt, and as soon as it looks like happily ever after is on the horizon, it is taken away from him like that. He got a second chance to be with her and didn't even get to keep it. Sure, he, Hal, and Kilowog stopped the universe from dying, and that's all happy and whatnot, but why did you do this in the last episode? Why can't he be happy? At least the future is looking bright or something, because Razer thinks Aya's consciousness is out there somewhere and is dedicating himself to finding her. The very last scene of the show is a blue lantern ring following him out, implying that he is no longer fueled by rage, but by hope, and that he will become a blue lantern. The future is looking bright, but we won't see it because the show is 1 season! What a masterpiece! What an absolute beauty of a show! Blew my expectations out of the water. So how on earth did the show not get renewed for a second season? This show came out in 2011. You know what else came out in 2011? This scum of the earth! I have never seen the live-action Green Lantern movie, but I have only ever heard bad things about it. Ryan Reynolds himself as Deadpool killed off the version of himself that made this movie. The live-action movie did so poorly that it discouraged anyone from continuing the show, which is a tragedy. I have a lot of hope for James Gunn's DCU Green Lantern show, although the fact that it takes place on Earth is a little, I didn't even finish the sentence, it just says a little. But I'll save my judgment for when it comes out in like 5 years. But it will have a lot to live up to because this show sets the bar. Music, great. Story, phenomenal. Animation, it doesn't detract from the experience, it's fine. They really struggle with backgrounds though, although the ones that take place in space are stunning. In episode 4, when they are trying to escape a black hole, that is the most beautiful black hole I have ever seen. Watch this show. Do it. Please. I beg. I know it's not going to get the X-Men 97 treatment, but a girl can dream. Wait, what do you mean Razer showed up in Young Justice? Alright, so, in Young Justice Season 4, Episode 19, Razer shows up to give a little update on his life. The Young Justice show does not take place in the same universe as the Green Lantern animated series, but based on the events in this episode, they make it clear that at least similar events took place. So we can assume that the things that are happening with Young Justice Razer also happened with GL Taz Razer. I had a choice to make. Either I could start watching Young Justice from Season 1, Episode 1 to get the whole picture, and when I finally get to Season 4, Episode 19, I get to see Razer as a treat with context. Yeah, there's no way I'm going to do that. I want to see Razer! So I watch the episode and here's what happens. Kilowog and the bird guy, Tamar Ray, are out patrolling when they get a distress signal. They answer it to find a blue lantern floating in space, and Kilowog recognizes him as Razer, and there's a reunion, and it's really sweet. And it's them, for real. The voice actors are the same, they're written exactly as they were, and it's fantastic. Kilowog and Razer have a small conversation where Razer updates Kilowog on what he's been up to. It's been 4 years since the events of the Green Lantern series finale, and during that time, Razer has been off the map, never contacting Kilowog or Hal or anyone. He had found some leads to finding Aya, but they all led to dead ends. Eventually, he gave up hope, and because his Blue Lantern ring runs on hope, it gave out and he got stranded in space until Kilowog rescued him. When Razer initially accepted the Blue Lantern ring, he kept the red one so no one else could get it and be affected by it. Eventually, this powerful dude is like, hey, I'll hang on to it for you, so Razer gave it up to him and now he wants it back because his blue one isn't working. Kilowog has an important meeting to go to, so Razer goes off to look for the guy. He finds him and asks for the red ring back. The guy is like, I've studied the red ring thoroughly and now I want to see it in action, so here you go. He gives it back, but wants the blue ring as a trade. The trade is made and Razer puts on the red ring and nothing happens. He is not full of rage anymore. But the guy is like, hey, so you know all those leads you were following to find Aya that led to nothing? Yeah, I planted those. They were never real, so you just wasted 4 years of your life. Why can't Razer just catch a break? Why does this keep happening? So Razer is understandably furious and the red ring activates, so he fights the guy and they cause destruction across the city, and Razer knocks down some statues and accidentally injures this bug creature who was on a date with another bug creature. This snaps Razer out of it because it reminds him of him and Aya. So he gets the blue ring back and the two rings merge. So now he's blue and red. He's half rage, half hope. He goes to say goodbye to Kilowog because he's going to continue on his quest, and he says to say hi to Hal for him. And that's the Razer Young Justice episode. Which, doesn't do much. All it does is confirm that Razer accepted the Blue Lantern ring, made a bad deal, got his red ring back, and now he's both, I guess. No sign of Aya. Or is there? Not in Young Justice, but in a completely different show called Justice League Action. Unlike Young Justice, there is zero way the events of the Green Lantern series happened in this universe. But Aya is here! In the episode titled Barehanded, she is the nav system for some space taxi. She claims amnesia, but she knows she is more than an ordinary nav system. Then she says that she has an urging to go look for someone or something, turns into the same sphere she was when she was a disembodied voice on the Interceptor, and floats away. She also mentions that Hal Jordan, who is being toted around in this taxi, looks familiar. Now, this is not the same Hal Jordan from the Green Lantern show, as he has no idea who Aya is, but theory time! After she died in the Green Lantern finale, she moved her consciousness over to some other device. Somewhere along the way, she got transported to another universe, the Justice League Action universe, which we know is possible because Hal did it in episode 16. That's why Razer hasn't found her yet, because she's in a completely different universe entirely. And we know that the Aya in Justice League Action can't be an Aya original to that universe, because she has memories of Hal Jordan, meanwhile the Hal Jordan of this universe has no recollection of her at all. Therefore, she has to be from a different universe. Perhaps the Green Lantern animated series universe. And that's it! The complete lore of Green Lantern, the animated series, plus some extra stuff. There are spin-off comics that connect to the show, but I haven't read them, and I don't know how canon they are, or how to get my hands on them. But if they do anything to get Razer and Aya back together, I need them! Thanks for watching! Remember what they took from you! Like and subscribe, and comment something. Bye!